Have you ever stood in the quiet of your home, clutching your paycheck, staring at the numbers, yet feeling a hollow ache in your chest, wondering if this is all life amounts to, a relentless cycle of work, bills, and fleeting weekends? What if the hours you spend laboring could transform into a sacred adventure, where every task, every effort, resonates with a purpose etched into your soul by the Creator Himself? Or picture this: what if the key to true abundance be not just money, but peace that steadies your heart, joy that lifts your spirit, and provision that never falters has been within you all along, waiting to be unlocked? Today, we're embarking on a journey that will reshape how you view work forever. This isn't about clocking in, chasing a salary, or surviving the grind. It's about stepping boldly into the eternal calling God designed for you, a purpose that infuses every moment with meaning and sets your heart ablaze. Are you ready to trade the weariness of existence for the exhilaration of a life fully alive? Let's travel back to the dawn of time, to a world untouched by stress, sorrow, or struggle. Close your eyes and imagine the Garden of Eden. Emerald leaves, shimmering in a gentle breeze, their edges catching the golden light of a sun that never sets. Rivers flow like liquid silver, their waters sparkling as they carve through fields of vibrant wildflowers. Every blade of grass hums with life, every fruit-laden tree a testament to the Creator's artistry. This is where God placed Adam, not with a job application, a time card, or a paycheck, but with a divine mission. God didn't tell Adam to find employment, to hustle for a wage, or to build a career. He gave him a purpose: to tend the garden, to cultivate its beauty, to expand its abundance, to bring order to a world brimming with potential. Work, in its purest form, was a joyful act of creation, a sacred partnership with the Creator to shape a world of wonder. Adam wasn't an employee, bound by a contract or a supervisor's demands. He was a steward, a ruler, entrusted with authority over creation, his every task a brushstroke on God's canvas. Can you imagine the freedom of working with such clarity, where each effort felt like a note in a divine symphony, where every moment pulsed with purpose? Now open your eyes to the world we inhabit today. From the time we're old enough to understand, we're fed a different narrative, one that feels like a cage disguised as a promise. Study hard, we're told. Get good grades, earn a degree, land a stable job, and work until you retire. It's a conveyor belt, a treadmill that promises security, but often delivers burnout, anxiety, and a gnawing sense that something vital is missing. The alarm clock jolts you awake, the commute grinds you down, the deadlines pile up, and the paycheck, though necessary, never quite fills the void. That's not God's design. God never intended for you to chase a paycheck, to tie your identity to a job title, or to measure your worth by promotions, raises, or corner offices. He created you for purpose, not just labor. He designed you to rule, not merely to toil. When this truth dawns on your heart, it's like a fog lifting, revealing a horizon you never knew existed. You stop seeing yourself as a worker trapped in a system, a cog in an unfeeling machine, and start seeing yourself as a child of God, called to something eternal, something magnificent. Have you ever felt that quiet stirring, that whisper in your soul, urging you toward a life beyond the daily grind, beyond the endless cycle of work and worry? The enemy has spun a cunning lie, one that's taken root in the hearts of millions. He's convinced us that our security lies in our salary, that our provision depends on the approval of an employer, the stability of a company, or the whims of the economy. But let's return to Adam in the Garden of Eden. Standing beneath the shade of a towering tree, the earth warm beneath his feet. He had no paycheck, no benefits package, no human boss to please. He had an assignment from God, a purpose that sustained him, and that was enough. The same principle applies to you today, right now, in this very moment. God didn't send you into this world to be hired by man, to compete for a cubicle or a corner office. He sent you to be sent by Him, to walk in a calling that aligns with His eternal plan. You're not meant to scour job listings, to fight for a spot in someone else's hierarchy. You're meant to uncover the purpose God wove into your being, a calling tailored to the unique gifts He placed within you. The world drills into us that success is a degree, a job, a steady income, a comfortable retirement with a nest egg to cushion your final years. But God's promise slices through that noise like a beacon. Seek His kingdom first, and everything you need, provision, peace, purpose, will be provided. Isn't that a radical shift in perspective? The world says survive by getting a job. God says thrive by embracing your purpose. Think about Jesus. He never told anyone to update their resume, to network with influencers, or to climb the corporate ladder. When He met Peter, James, and John, they were fishermen, their hands rough and calloused from years of hauling nets, their faces weathered by the sun and the salt of the Sea of Galilee. Their lives were dictated by the rhythm of the tides, the weight of their catch, the unpredictability of the wind and waves. Each day they cast their nets into the deep, hoping for enough fish to feed their families, to pay their debts, to survive another season. Did Jesus approach them with an offer of a better fishing job, a higher wage, or a promotion to manage the docks? No. He walked along the shore, the waves lapping at His feet, and looked into their hearts. "Follow me," He said, "and I will make you fishers of men." In that single moment, their world turned upside down. He didn't just give them a new task, He gave them a mission that would ripple through eternity, a purpose that would change the course of history. They weren't just workers anymore, hauling nets for a living. They were sent into a calling that reshaped the world, that brought the good news of God's love to nations far and wide. Yet today, so many of us are weighed down by stress, chasing careers that leave us hollow, seeking security in jobs instead of anchoring our identity in Christ. Have you ever felt that ache, that longing for something more than the relentless routine of work, the endless cycle of clocking in and clocking out? A job is not your destiny. God didn't create you to be trapped in a cycle of survival, living for Fridays and dreading Mondays, counting the hours until the next paycheck clears. The difference between chasing a job and chasing purpose is like the difference between stumbling through a dark, foggy night and walking in the radiant light of a new dawn. When you seek a job, you rely on human systems, economic trends, corporate decisions, market shifts, or the goodwill of a manager. When you seek God's kingdom, you rely on Him, the one whose provision knows no limits, whose resources are infinite. A job forces you to compete, to outshine others for a limited position, to prove your worth in a crowded field. But God's calling creates a space just for you, designed for the gifts He placed within you, a role no one else can fill. A job is fragile, easily disrupted by layoffs, recessions, or automation. Your calling is eternal, unshaken by the storms of this world, rooted in the unchanging nature of God. So, which voice are you listening to? The world's, urging you to find a job, to secure your future through employment, or God's, calling you to embrace your purpose, to step into the life He created you for? Consider Moses. He wasn't browsing job boards or submitting applications when God called him. He was a fugitive, hiding in the wilderness of Midian, his life unraveling under the weight of his past mistakes. Once a prince of Egypt, he had fallen Pharaoh, a shepherd in a foreign land, haunted by the memory of a life he could never reclaim. His hands, once accustomed to the luxuries of a palace, were now calloused from tending sheep under a scorching desert sun. God didn't ask for his credentials, his experience, or a polished resume. He appeared in a burning bush, flames dancing without consuming, and called Moses to a purpose far greater than his failures. God sent him to lead a nation out of slavery, to stand before Pharaoh with a staff in hand, to part the Red Sea, and defy the might of an empire. Moses wasn't qualified by worldly standards, she stuttered. He doubted, he resisted. Yet God saw his purpose and transformed a broken man into a liberator. Or picture David, a young shepherd standing beneath a vast starlit sky, the cool night air carrying the bleating of his flock. His fingers strummed a harp, crafting melodies that soothed the sheep and lifted his heart to God. He wasn't applying for a royal position, wasn't seeking fame or power. Yet God chose him, anointing him as king because he was already walking in his calling, faithful in the humble fields, brave enough to face lions and bears to protect his flock. Today, too many people anchor their security in a paycheck, in the fleeting stability of a job. They define themselves by their roles: doctor, teacher, manager, engineer, instead of who they are in Christ. But jobs can vanish in an instant, swept away by a corporate restructuring or an economic downturn. Your calling endures forever, unshaken by the uncertainties of this world. A career might last a few decades, but your purpose was crafted for eternity, a legacy that stretches beyond time. Jesus himself never held a conventional job. He wasn't on anyone's payroll, answering to human authorities or chasing a salary to make ends meet. He was a carpenter by trade, yes, but his life wasn't defined by the tools in his hands or the wood he shaped. His mission was far greater. He fulfilled the greatest purpose in history, transforming humanity's destiny with every word he spoke, every life he touched, every miracle he performed. Paul, once a respected religious leader with status, influence, and a thriving career, gave it all up when he met Jesus on the road to Damascus. Blinded by a divine light, he heard the voice of Christ and was forever changed. He later declared that everything he once valued, his titles, his achievements, his reputation, was worthless compared to the treasure of knowing Christ, When you chase jobs instead of purpose, you risk a life of restlessness, always running after the next promotion, the next raise, the next milestone, but never finding true contentment. The applause of the world fades, the bonuses dwindle, the job titles lose their shine. But when you step into your calling, work becomes something extraordinary. It's no longer about survival, it's about significance. You don't wake up to make a living. You wake up to make a difference, to leave a mark that echoes through generations, to build a legacy that outlives you. So, what will you pour your life into? Something temporary like a job, or something eternal like your purpose? One of the greatest deceptions of our time is the belief that your paycheck is your provider, that your survival hinges on the next direct deposit. People live in fear, chasing salaries, worrying about job security, dreading the day a layoff notice arrives or a company downsizes. They check their bank accounts obsessively, calculate budgets down to the penny, and lie awake at night wondering how they'll make ends meet if the job disappears. But hear this truth, and let it sink deep. Your employer is not your source. The economy is not your source. The stock market, with its dizzying highs and lows, is not your source. Jesus taught us to look at the birds of the air. They don't plant crops, harvest fields, or store food in barns, yet their heavenly Father feeds them. Picture a sparrow gliding through a golden sky, its wings catching the morning light, free from the burden of anxiety, never fretting about tomorrow's meal. If God cares for such creatures, who never punch a time card or stress about bills, how much more will He care for you, His beloved child, created in His image? The problem is that many trust their paycheck more than the God who provides. When their job is steady, they feel safe, their confidence tied to a contract or a direct deposit. When it's at risk, they spiral into fear, their world unraveling at the thought of losing that income. But God never called you to live in dread of provision. He called you to live by faith, trusting in His boundless resources, His infinite care. Think of Elijah during a time of famine, when the land was parched and hope was scarce. He had no job, no savings, no safety net to fall back on. Yet God sent ravens to bring him bread and meat, their black wings slicing through the dawn as they delivered his sustenance to a lonely ravine. When the stream he drank from dried up, God directed him to a widow in Zarephath, a woman with nothing but a handful of flour and a drop of oil. Yet in her humble home, a miracle unfolded. The flour never ran out, the oil never failed, and they were sustained through the famine. Or imagine the Israelites wandering the wilderness for 40 years, their sandals kicking up dust under a relentless sun. They had no farms, no wages, no markets to rely on. Yet every morning, manna fell from the sky like dew, a heavenly provision that met their needs. Their shoes never wore out, their clothes remained intact, their strength endured. Why? Because God was their source, their provider, their sustainer. This doesn't mean you sit idle, waiting for miracles to fall from the sky. God blesses diligent work, the effort of your hands, the sweat of your brow. But He doesn't want you enslaved to the fear of losing a job, of facing an empty bank account. Your job is just a channel, a temporary conduit. God is the source, the eternal wellspring. If one door closes, he can open another. If a business fails, he can birth something greater. The world says, without a job, you can't survive. God says, I will meet all your needs from my infinite riches. Who will you trust your paycheck with its limits and uncertainties, or the one who provides without measure? Work was never meant to be a curse, a punishment, or a burden. When God placed Adam in the Garden of Eden, He gave him a responsibility to tend and keep it, to nurture its growth, to maintain its beauty, to bring order to its abundance. This was before sin entered the world, meaning work was part of God's perfect plan, a reflection of His creative nature, a gift that allowed humanity to mirror the Creator's delight in making something beautiful. Imagine Adam kneeling in the garden, his hands buried in the rich, fertile soil, coaxing life from the earth, planting seeds that would grow into towering trees, pruning vines that would bear fruit sweeter than any we know today. Every task was a joyful partnership with the Creator. Every effort, an act of worship, a way to shape a world of wonder. Work was a canvas, and Adam was an artist, painting with the colors of creation. But after the fall, everything changed. The ground was cursed, and work became toil, a struggle marked by sweat, frustration, and pain. Thorns and thistles sprouted where flowers once bloomed, and survival became a battle against a resistant earth. That's the system we see today, people laboring endlessly to pay bills, trapped in a cycle of exhaustion, their efforts often feeling futile, their hearts heavy with the weight of monotony. But that was never God's intention, never His heart for you. Employment as we know it is a human construct, a system built on the shifting sands of profit, competition, and efficiency. Companies hire and fire at will, driven by market trends, shareholder demands, or the latest technological advance. Jobs can be outsourced to cheaper labor, automated by machines, or eliminated in a boardroom decision made thousands of miles away. People cling to their jobs, terrified that without them they'll lose everything: their home, their stability, their sense of self. They wake each morning with a knot in their stomach, wondering if today's the day their desk will be cleared, their access badge deactivated. But God didn't create you to be a slave to that system, to live in fear of the next layoff, the next economic downturn, the next restructuring. He designed you to work with purpose, to create, to build, to leave a legacy that outlives you, that echoes through generations. Look at the heroes of faith: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, David. None of them were employees in the modern sense, bound by contracts, time cards, or performance reviews. Abraham wandered as a nomad, following God's voice across deserts and mountains. Yet God made him the father of nations, his faith forging a covenant that endures to this day. Isaac sowed in a time of famine, when the ground was cracked and dry, and reaped 100-fold, his obedience yielding abundance when others faced scarcity. Jacob wrestled with God in the dead of night and became Israel, his legacy shaping a people, a nation, a history. Joseph rose from slavery to rule Egypt, his wisdom saving a nation from starvation, his dreams guiding an empire through crisis. David, a shepherd boy with a sling and a song, became a king, his courage felling giants, his psalms lifting hearts for millennia. Even Jesus, a carpenter by trade, wasn't chained to a boss, a workshop, or a business plan. When he called his disciples, he didn't offer better jobs, higher wages, or a corner office. He offered kingdom work, a mission that transcended wages, a purpose that would change the world. Does this mean you should quit your job tomorrow, walk away without a plan? Not necessarily, but it does mean you need to rethink your approach, to shift your perspective. Stop thinking like an employee, bound by the world's rules, tethered to a system that can discard you without warning. Start thinking like a citizen of God's kingdom, a steward of His gifts, a bearer of His purpose. Your work should reflect who God created you to be, not just what you do to pay the bills. Jesus never told anyone to chase a career, to build a LinkedIn profile, or to hustle for a promotion. Instead, He called people out of the world's systems and into divine assignments, missions that carried eternal weight. Picture Peter and Andrew by the Sea of Galilee, their nets heavy with fish, their hands raw from the ropes, their faces bronzed by years under the sun. Their lives were governed by the tides, the wind, the weight of their daily catch. Each morning, they rowed out into the deep, casting their nets with practiced precision, hoping for enough fish to feed their families, to pay their debts, to survive another day. They weren't dreaming of fame or fortune, they were just trying to make ends meet, to keep their heads above water. Then Jesus walks by, his sandals crunching on the pebbled shore, the waves lapping at his feet. His voice cuts through the salty air, strong and clear. "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." In that moment, their world turned upside down. They didn't hesitate, didn't say, "Let me finish this haul," or "Let me check with my family first." They dropped their nets, left their boats bobbing in the shallows, and followed him. Why? Because they saw something far greater than a job, greater than the fish they pulled from the sea. They saw a mission that would shape eternity, a purpose that would bring hope to a broken world. Or imagine Matthew sitting at his tax booth, the coins clinking as they piled up, the scrolls of accounts spread before him. He was secure in his government job, his income steady, his position enviable in a world where many struggled to survive. Yet his heart was heavy, his reputation tarnished by those who saw him as a traitor, a collaborator with the Roman oppressors. When Jesus walked by and said, "Follow me," Matthew didn't cling to his career, didn't negotiate for a better deal or a severance package. He stood up, walked away from the coins, the scrolls, the security, and followed. Paul, once a respected religious leader with influence, a thriving career, and the respect of his peers, gave it all up when he met Jesus. Blinded by a divine light on the road to Damascus, he heard the voice of Christ and was forever changed. He later said that everything he once valued, his titles, his achievements, his status, was worthless compared to the treasure of knowing Christ. These men weren't chasing salaries, promotions, or corner offices. They were chasing purpose, a calling that filled their lives with meaning. Today, too many people define their worth by their job, their office, their business card, their LinkedIn headline. But Jesus didn't measure people by their careers, their accomplishments, or their bank accounts. He measured them by their obedience to God's call, their willingness to follow Him, He wasn't hiring employees to fill roles. He was calling disciples to change the world. If Jesus called you to step out of your comfort zone, to trade the security of a paycheck for the adventure of faith, would you follow? What would happen if you trusted Him with your purpose, if you dared to believe He has something greater for you? God created you to create, not just to consume, to take up space, or to drift through life. He told Adam and Eve to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth and subdue it. He didn't say, go find a job, punch a clock, earn a wage. He said, produce, create, expand. You were designed to generate, to innovate, to build, to expand God's kingdom through the gifts He placed within you. But the world trains us to be consumers, to follow a predictable path. Study hard, get a job, earn money, spend it, save a little, and repeat the cycle until you retire. People live from paycheck to paycheck, their lives dictated by bills, budgets, and the next expense. They don't realize that God has placed within them the ability to create something extraordinary, something that multiplies, something that leaves a lasting impact. Look at Jesus. He never consumed without producing. With 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, He fed thousands, the crowd eating until they were full, with baskets overflowing with leftovers. When Peter needed money to pay a tax, Jesus didn't hand him a paycheck or a loan. He told him to cast a line into the sea and find a coin in the mouth of a fish. The world wants you to trade your time, your energy, your life for wages that barely cover the cost of living. The kingdom wants you to create value that multiplies, that endures, that transforms. Think about the story of the talents, a lesson Jesus shared about stewardship. A master entrusted 3 servants with money, giving each a portion to manage. 2 of them invested boldly, taking risks, working diligently, and their efforts yielded abundant returns, doubling what they'd been given. But the 3rd servant, paralyzed by fear, buried his talent in the ground, hiding it away, refusing to take a chance. When the master returned, he praised the 2 who multiplied their talents, but he condemned the 3rd, calling him lazy and unfaithful. Why? Because God expects fruitfulness, not stagnation, not excuses, not fear. Right now, countless people are sitting on their giftsidias that could spark change, talents that could inspire, dreams that could transform lives. But they're too afraid to step out, too comfortable in jobs they hate, too tethered to the familiarity of a paycheck. They work for survival, not for significance, their potential buried like that talent in the ground. But when you see yourself as a creator, as a producer, everything changes. Your work becomes a canvas, your life a masterpiece. Are you consuming or are you creating? Are you burying your gift, hiding it out of fear? Or are you multiplying what God has given you, daring to step into the fullness of His plan? Your gift is your key to provision, the spark that opens doors no resume can unlock. The Bible teaches that a person's gift makes room for them, bringing them before influential people, creating opportunities where none existed. Not a job, not a degree, not a network, your gift, that unique ability God wove into you before you were born. Look at Joseph. His gift of interpreting dreams lifted him from a prison cell, where he languished in chains, to the palace of Pharaoh, where he became second in command over an entire nation. His insight saved Egypt from famine, his wisdom guiding an empire through crisis. David's gifts of leadership and music carried him from a shepherd's field, where he guarded sheep under a vast sky, to the king's court, where his harp soothed a troubled monarch. Daniel's wisdom and insight made him a ruler in foreign empires, his understanding of visions and dreams shaping the course of kingdoms. These men didn't rely on jobs, salaries, or corporate ladders. They relied on their God-given gifts, the talents that set them apart. Yet today, many people ignore their gifts, chasing employment instead, settling for jobs that pay the bills but starve the soul. If you depend on a job, you're at the mercy of the economy, of corporate decisions, of market trends that shift like the wind. If you depend on your gift, you're at the mercy of God, whose resources are limitless, whose plans are unshakable. Jesus operated in his gift, and it made room for him. He didn't need a salary, a title, or a corner office. His gift sustained him. He healed the sick, restoring sight to the blind, strength to the lame, hope to the broken. He taught with authority, his words piercing hearts, unveiling truths that endure to this day. He transformed lives, and provision always followed, whether through the generosity of followers or the miracles he performed. When food was scarce, he multiplied loaves and fish, feeding thousands with abundance left over, the baskets brimming with what remained. When money was needed for a tax, it appeared in the mouth of a fish, a provision as precise as it was miraculous. Many people are frustrated, weary, and unfulfilled because they're working outside their gift, trapped in jobs that drain their energy, that leave them feeling like a shadow of who they were meant to be. But when you operate in your calling, provision follows purpose. You don't chase money chases you, drawn to the value you create, the impact you make. So, what's in your hands? What gift has God given you? Are you using it, cultivating it, sharing it with the world, or are you burying it, letting fear or doubt keep it hidden? God is asking you to unlock the treasure within you, to step out in faith, because when you do, doors will open that no man can shut. Opportunities will arise that no resume could ever secure. God created you to solve problems, not just to fill roles, to check boxes, or to blend into the background. Every great leader in the Bible rose to prominence by providing solutions, by meeting needs, by bringing light to darkness. Joseph saved Egypt from famine with his God-given wisdom, crafting a strategy that averted disaster, storing grain during years of plenty to sustain the nation through years of scarcity. Daniel interpreted dreams when no one else could, his insight earning him a province to govern, his influence shaping empires. David defeated Goliath when no one else dared, a shepherd boy with a sling and a stone stepping from obscurity to destiny, his courage felling a giant and inspiring a nation. The world teaches you to look for jobs, to fill positions, to fit into someone else's system, to conform to their expectations. The kingdom teaches you to become a solution, to meet needs, to bring value that transforms. Jesus was the ultimate problem solver, bringing salvation to a lost world, hope to the hopeless, life to the dead. Everywhere he went, he met needs, feeding the hungry with a boy's lunch, healing the sick with a touch, restoring the broken with a word. Because he walked in purpose, provision followed, his needs met through divine supply and human generosity. If you want to rise, don't chase jobs, chase solutions. Instead of praying for a paycheck, pray for wisdom, for insight, for the courage to step into your calling. Instead of seeking employment, seek opportunities to add value, to make a difference, to meet a need. When you become the answer to a problem, people will seek you out, opportunities will find you, and provision will flow. You weren't created to fill a position, to occupy a desk, to complete tasks for someone else's gain. You were created to fulfill a purpose, to bring solutions to a world in need. The world is full of problems, poverty, division, despair, but you carry divine solutions within you. Gifts that can change lives, communities, even nations. Stop waiting for a job offer, a promotion, or a raise to validate your worth. Start walking in your calling, because when you do, doors will open that no application could ever unlock. Paths will appear that no career fair could reveal. Imagine the impact you could have if you embraced your role as a problem solver, bringing light to darkness, hope to despair, and solutions to chaos. What could your life look like if you dared to live as the solution God created you to be? A paycheck is limited, bound by hours worked, contracts signed, and budgets set. But God's blessing is boundless, a river that never runs dry. The Bible teaches that the blessing of the Lord brings wealth without sorrow, without the stress, anxiety, or emptiness that often accompany worldly gain. Not a job, not overtime, not a side hustle, the blessing of God. Abraham became rich in livestock, silver, and gold because of God's promise. Not because he clocked in for a 9-to-5 or hustled for a bonus. His wealth grew as he followed God's call. His tents filled with abundance, his name honored across generations. Isaac sowed in a time of famine, when the ground was cracked and the skies were stingy. Yet he reaped 100-fold because God blessed him, his fields thriving while others withered, his storehouses overflowing while others went hungry. Solomon sought wisdom, not wealth, asking God for understanding to lead his people. Yet God added riches beyond measure, his kingdom dazzling with gold, ivory, and splendor, his name synonymous with prosperity. When God's blessing rests on you, opportunities come without begging. Favor follows you like a shadow, and resources pursue you, drawn to the purpose you embody. The world calls it luck, a happy accident, a stroke of fortune. The kingdom calls it favor, the hand of God at work. Why do wealthy people, with their mansions, private jets, and overflowing bank accounts, still feel empty, their lives echoing with loneliness? Because money sustains for a moment, a fleeting season, but God's blessing brings lasting peace, joy, and purpose, a richness that money can never buy. Seek God's kingdom first, Jesus taught, and provision will follow, not as a reward for your hustle, but as a gift from His hand. Stop chasing jobs. Stop chasing paychecks, chase God's presence, because under His blessing you will always have more than enough, more than you could ask or imagine. God's plan was never for you to merely survive, to scrape by, to live paycheck to paycheck. counting pennies and dreading the next bill. His plan was for you to rule, to walk in authority, to shape the world around you. He gave humanity dominion, a mandate to steward creation, to bring order, to cultivate beauty. Not jobs, not wages, not cubicles or corner office authority, influence, impact. The enemy traps people in survival mode, reducing life to paying bills, saving for retirement, and hoping for a few years of rest before the end. But God designed you for so much more, for impact, for influence, for a legacy that endures. Adam was a steward, not a worker, managing creation with divine purpose, his hands shaping a world of wonder. Joseph rose from slavery to rule Egypt, his wisdom guiding a nation through famine, his leadership saving countless lives. David, a shepherd boy with a sling and a song, became a king, his courage felling giants, his psalms lifting hearts for millennia. Every person who walks with God outgrows the world system, breaking free from its chains to step into divine authority. Jesus made us rulers and ambassadors, called to reign on the earth, to carry His light into every corner. You weren't made to be a slave to wages, to live in fear of the next paycheck or the next layoff. You're an heir to God's promise, a bearer of His purpose, a child of the King. Stop thinking like a worker, bound by the constraints of a job, tethered to a system that can discard you without warning. Start thinking like a ruler, called to influence, to create, to shape the world around you. When you realize you were created to reign, you'll never fear losing a job again, because your purpose is greater than any position, your calling stronger than any contract. Jobs are temporary, fleeting, fragile. Companies fold, their logos fading into history. Economies crash, their graphs plunging like a stone. Positions vanish, replaced by machines, cheaper labor, or a CEO's whim. But purpose? No one can take that from you. It's woven into your soul, anchored in the eternal. Joseph lost his role in Potiphar's house when falsely accused, cast into a prison cell with no hope of release. Yet his purpose carried him to Pharaoh's palace, where he ruled a nation, his wisdom saving millions from starvation. Daniel outlasted kings and empires, his purpose greater than any title, his wisdom enduring through shifting regimes, his faithfulness sustaining him in the lion's den. Paul gave up his status as a religious leader, his reputation as a scholar, to pursue his true calling, preaching the gospel to the ends of the earth, his words still shaping lives today. A job provides a paycheck, a temporary means to an end. Purpose provides fulfillment, a reason to rise each morning. People retire from jobs and feel lost, their identity tied to a role that's gone, their days stretching empty before them. But purpose never retires you. Keep making an impact, keep creating, keep shining until your final breath. Jesus said his sustenance, his nourishment, was to do the will of the one who sent him. His satisfaction came from his assignment, not from money, status, or applause. The world measures success by salaries, titles, and accolades. Heaven measures it by obedience, by faithfulness to the call. Are you working for a paycheck, for the fleeting rewards of this world? Or are you walking in the reason God created you, the purpose that gives your life meaning? The world says find a job, get hired, secure your future. God says find your purpose, discover the calling I placed within you. The world says depend on a paycheck, on the stability of a company, on the strength of the economy. God says depend on my provision, on my infinite resources, on my unchanging love. The world pushes you to survive, to scrape by, to cling to the next dollar. God calls you to dominate, to create, to leave a legacy that echoes through generations, that shapes eternity. Abraham didn't chase jobs. He chased God's promise, becoming the father of nations, his faith a foundation for billions. Joseph didn't seek employment. He walked in his gift, his dreams saving a nation from famine. David didn't apply for kingship. He trusted God's anointing, his sling felling giants, his songs lifting souls. Daniel didn't cling to titles. He operated in wisdom, his insight influencing empires. Paul didn't build a career. He built the church, his words spreading the gospel to the ends of the earth. Jesus never filled out a job application, never chased a paycheck, yet he lacked nothing because he walked in the Father's will, his every step guided by purpose. That same promise is yours, waiting for you to claim it. So, what are you chasing? A career that will fade, a salary that will run dry, or a calling that will endure? A paycheck that meets today's needs, or the one who holds all provision in his hands? Step into what God created you for, and blessings will follow. Doors will open that no man can shut, opportunities will find you, and provision will flow like a river. God never said, look for a job. He said, seek my kingdom first, and all you need will be given to you. Your purpose is waiting, calling your name. It's time to step into it, to live the life God designed for you, to walk in the fullness of His plan, to become the person He created you to be.